we are asking you today, what do you think of the results? How did you vote? What do you want to see the new government take on right away here? Give us a call. Join the conversation. 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893. You can text us at 204-588-7355, 204-588-7355. It is my pleasure to welcome again to the show Kelly Saunders, political science professor at Brandon University. Good afternoon, Kelly.
Hi, Marjorie.
Boy, there is a lot to talk about here, and we don't even have the full results yet. So, Kelly, I want to start off just by asking you in general, what do you make of what we've seen unfold so far in these results?
Yeah, where do you start? One commentator called it a weird election, and I think that's going to be the official poli-sci term for this election. There's so many things to unpack here, from the fact that you had really a two-party race. You saw the squeezing out of the NDP and the Bloc. You had two party leaders losing their own seats, Jagmeet Singh and, of course, Pierre Poilievre. You had unpredictability happening in terms of what was actually going to be the ballot box question. It seemed that there wasn't one, but there were two. There's just so many things. We had seats flipping in Manitoba. So, yeah, this is an election that will definitely go down in the history books.
Was there anything that surprised you? I know the polls had things unfolding a certain way, but was there anything that kind of stood out to you as, an aha moment or a surprise moment?
Yeah, there were a couple. First of all, Pierre Poilievre losing his seat. I knew that there were some rumors bouncing around, but I kind of, I'm like, oh, he's the leader of the official opposition. They could potentially be forming government. I mean, it would be really odd for a leader like that, such stature, to lose his own seat. And lo and behold, he did. So that caught me by surprise. And also the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area. I think a lot of polls were showing that the Liberals would come out with a majority of seats out of Ontario, but it looked like the Toronto area really sort of stopped that Liberal march towards a majority government. And so I was surprised a little bit about that. So, and many other things, no doubt, but those are the two things that really stood out for me last night.
I want to ask you about Poilievre's future here, because losing his seat, he has indicated that he wants to stay on as the leader of the Conservative Party. So, I mean, what happens next for him?
Yeah, that's $1 million question. I mean, it's really going to be up to his caucus, right? I mean, they are going to be the ones to really sort of dictate and decide for themselves. Is this a leader that we still have confidence in, that we feel comfortable leading us into this next session of Parliament? Or is it time for change? And so that's going to be a big question. And then, of course, he needs a seat in the House of Commons. So even if his party does decide they want to hang on to him as leader, that means one of his newly elected MPs is going to have to step down from their own seat and offer it up for Pierre Poilievre. And then there still needs to be a by-election. So that's going to be tough, I think, for him to do. And it's going to take some time. And, everybody's going to want to get back to business. Of course, we've got to deal with the U.S. and tariffs and get the economy going again. So do we really have time to worry about by-elections and those kinds of things when everyone needs to get back to work very quickly? So a lot of moving parts there.
We're speaking with Kelly Saunders, political science professor at Brandon University. We're asking you what you think of the results of last night's election. How did you vote? What do you want to see the new government take on right away here? Give us a call and join the conversation. 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893, or text us at 204-588-7355, 204-588-7355. And we have our first caller on the line now. Edward joins us now. Hi, Edward.
Hi. These are fantastic results, and quite contrary to what Mark Carney ended up saying, that he didn't finish the finish line. I mean, that's really false information. He did finish the line, and he only got the minority government that the vast majority of Canadians wanted.
Thank you so much for your comment there, Edward.
May I just add?
Yeah, go ahead.
I did have a look at it, and this election is still a horrible outcome in that 119 ridings are where the majority of people who voted ended up with an MP for whom they didn't vote. Although this is better than the last time. The last time around, that was like 240. And I will just add, though, that with the broadcast this morning, I'm surprised that with the lady in Churchill, no mention was made that she only has well under 50%, and she's the only Manitoba MP that didn't even get 50%.
Thank you very much for your comment there, Edward. So, Edward, talking about how the Liberals here were given a minority government. I know that still, Kelly, there's a lot of polls that still have to report. They're currently, as I'm seeing here on CBC News Network, 168 seats that they're leading or elected in. What do you think there? What do you take away from Edward's comments?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's rare for any one candidate to win over 50% of the vote in any one riding. And in fact, when we look at the numbers, both the Liberals and Conservatives reached over 40% of the popular vote yesterday. That's really unheard of in recent elections. I mean, you saw, previous Liberal governments winning under 40%. So typically when we say if you reach 40%, that's a large, strong majority government mandate. So I think it just goes to show just how volatile everything is these days. So, and it has a lot to do with how those popular votes are translated into seats, which is a little bit wonky sometimes given the nature of our electoral system. So again, when we use that sort of idea of this really being an election for the history books, I think those are some of the things that we can really point to.
We have Dennis who joins us now on the line. Hi, Dennis.
Good day. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Just fine.
What's your question or your comment?
My comment. The United Nations disaster agencies have a concept called Build Back Better. Whenever they move into a situation that's been decimated, they don't just look at immediate repairs and that, but they really do try to take advantage of opportunity and build the country, build the people, support the infrastructure in a total way. And I think that's a good concept for the new Liberal government looking forward. Don't just respond to Trump. Don't just play politics and patch up what they think Canadians need. But really, let's build Canada back better so that we don't have to tolerate threats from Trump and other issues related to globalization.
Thank
That's
you.
my comment.
Thank you so much for your comment, Dennis. Kelly, as we heard there from Dennis, I know that Trump what was a big, factor. It dominated a lot of the campaign and the talk out there on the campaign trail. But Dennis saying that we need to focus here on something he wants to see the Liberal government do when it comes to building.
Yeah, and I think that's an excellent point. I mean, no question we have to deal with Trump and tariffs. There's jobs and businesses on the line there and touches on issues of affordability. But, there are other really critical issues that we need to deal with as well. Everything from climate change to the housing crisis to grocery prices to natural resource development. And those things really need to be dealt with. And I think that Canadians, if you look at the fact that both the Liberals and the Conservatives won such a substantial number of votes, it means that Canadians want us to deal with all these things, and we need to get going and dealing with these things. So it's a big to-do list for the new Prime Minister or the old Prime Minister, Mark Carney. But I think the caller's right. We need to get down to work, and we need to start repairing and really fixing and addressing many of these challenges.
We're speaking with Kelly Saunders, political science professor at Brandon University. We're asking you what you thought of the election last night. Who did you vote for? What do you want to see the government take on here once Parliament resumes? Give us a call. Join the conversation. 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893, or text us at 204-588-7355, 204-588-7355. Kelly Saunders, I want to talk a little bit more about a minority government here, because I believe the last two governments we saw here were minority governments. We've been seeing them a little bit more. Do you think that this is something we're going to be seeing just because of the way that our political landscape is moving forward into future elections?
Yeah, I remember talking about this with my students, 10, 15 years ago, and minority governments were a rare creature. It was almost like the sighting of Sasquatch or something. But now they're becoming the new norm in Canadian politics. And on the one hand, minority governments can be effective because it does require governments to work with other political parties to reach across the aisle, to build consensus, come up with the best ideas, no matter where those ideas originate from. So that's the theory about how minority governments can and should work. But the reality is that it can be very fractured. It could lead to a lot of division, and then literally Parliament becoming, completely dysfunctional and shutting down. And that's unfortunately what we saw happening in the fall. So we don't have time, getting back to the previous caller, to wait for MPs to get together and decide how they want to move forward. We need to hit the ground running. There's big decisions that need to happen and big changes and decisions that need to be made. So I'm really hoping that this new Parliament can find a way to work together, because Canadians need and deserve a good, effective government in charge.
Thank you so much. We have Margaret on the line with a question or a comment. Hi there, Margaret.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. What's your question or your comment?
My question and comment is, I think the Canadians that are born here like us, we are worried about the conservative sentiment that is coming from the U.S., deportation and things like that, because majority of us, even though we vote NDP, the election is about, we come from war-torn countries. So when we're hearing things like deportation and things like that, it really just traumatizes us. So even though, this for us in the community, I know the Canadian doesn't really look at the role of newcomers and people that are born here, but it was a real scary moment when, the leader of Conservative Party is sounding like Trump, So this is the part that I don't think Canadians are talking about.
Thank you so much for your comment there, Margaret. Kelly, as we heard there from Margaret talking about newcomers and immigration in this country and also what we're seeing south of the border.
Yeah, absolutely. And the caller's right. And I think that was one of the, major question marks that some voters had about Pierre Poilievre and some of the messaging coming out from the Conservative Party. And certainly other commentators, even within the Conservative Party, called out Pierre Poilievre for that. And this fear that maybe we are moving too much towards American-style politics. And that's dangerous, not only in terms of, building national consensus and solidarity amongst Canadians, but let's face it, we're a country that relies on immigration and really values the contributions of newcomer communities to Canada. So I think that is something that really dogged the Conservatives, and I certainly understand why a lot of Canadians were fearful of that messaging.
We have Ian who joins us now on the line. Hi, Ian.
Hello.
Hi, what's your question or your comment?
My comment is that I voted, but the party that I would like is not represented in this riding. I think that the proportional representation would encourage the parties to work together. We've seen this under minority governments where there are good programs that come about because people work, people change their mind, and people participate. And we can't throw away a vote and then expect in 4 years' time you might have another chance at it. It's a constant thing where people need to think about their future and work together on various ideas. And this is very important. It's a missed opportunity from the last election. And I think it's important that anybody that is elected would end up with probably a majority in each riding, so that our voting system needs to become much better than it is. It's not about personalities, it's about policy and good governance. And that's a daily thing for everybody. Can you react, please?
Thank you so much for your comment there, Ian. Kelly, what do you think there? Ian talking about working together.
Yeah, the caller raises an excellent point. I mean, a majority of Canadians have called for the need for electoral reform. And that, in fact, was something that was promised, if we remember, back when Justin Trudeau was first elected in 2015. Unfortunately, that has not come to pass. But I think if we're going to see more, if I can use that word, American-style politics unfolding in Canada, where you've got two dominant parties, the Liberals and Conservatives, basically eating up 90% of the vote and seats in the House of Commons, other parties really being squeezed out. I think those calls on the need for maybe taking another look at the issue of proportional representation, electoral reform, those calls are only going to get stronger, because if we're seeing just two dominant parties in Canada, that's not really giving voters, a lot of choice and a lot of say, and that's only going to discourage voters from participating, and that's not good for democracy.
We're speaking with Kelly Saunders, political science professor at Brandon University. We have a few more minutes to take your calls. 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893. If you want to weigh in on the results of the election, you can also text us at 204-588-7355, 204-588-7355. Kelly, I want to touch on Manitoba here because, the story here is that there is one NDP MP who's heading back to Ottawa here. There were three MPs heading into this election. What do you make of the way that the political landscape looks right now in this province?
The collapse of the NDP across the country certainly played out here in Manitoba. And as you just said, it's a caucus of one now for the in terms of NDP representation in Manitoba. That's going to make it very challenging for Leah Gazan to really be able to provide an effective voice for her constituents in the House of Commons. Undoubtedly, she's going to do her best to really represent those interests, but really hard when a party doesn't even have official party status at the national level. And so just in terms of staff, in terms of resources, in terms of office space, in terms of being able to have designated questions that they can ask in the House of Commons during question period, committee representation, all of that now is really going to be very, very challenging for any of those NDP MPs. So it's going to be a tough road for MP Gazan.
What did you make of the results here in Winnipeg? I know that there's one more seat that is still kind of up in the air, and that's Kildonan St. Paul. But we did kind of see some seats here in Winnipeg flip, like, for example, Winnipeg West.
Yeah, Winnipeg West was one that I was really keeping close tabs on. Just because you had a sort of a really interesting dynamic there where you had two former and current MPs sort of squaring off again. And the vote difference last time around was really, really small in the 2021 election. So I was really paying attention and, thought that was one that the Liberals would be able to win back. And certainly they did that. But same thing with Elmwood-Transcona, even though the by-election was only in the fall. It was a very tight race in many ways between the Conservatives and the NDP there. And so not totally surprising that Colin Reynolds was able to pull that win off. But again, those were two that I was really keeping close tabs on.
So what's next here then for the NDP? We heard Jagmeet Singh talk about how he's stepping down, gonna have an interim leader named for the NDP. Where does the party go from here, especially the fact that they're losing official party status?
Yeah, that's going to make it really hard to rebuild. It's going to be challenging, right? They need to fundraise. They need to sort of raise their presence. They need to be to punch above their weight in the House of Commons, which, if the Liberals maintain a minority, they might be able to. It might be the NDP that is able to play the deal maker in terms of Liberals really leaning on them to be able to succeed votes in the House of Commons. But no question, the NDP has a tough road. But the NDP has been close to being wiped out before. I go back to the 1993 election, for example. They went down to 9 seats in that election. It was tough for them to rebuild. And they did sort of spectacularly under Jack Layton and then also heading into the 2015 election. So I certainly wouldn't write out the NDP. They've had a long history in this country, and I expect that they will continue to be a presence in Canadian politics. But I think in the short term, it's going to be challenging for them moving forward.
Okay, our time is quickly winding down. We have time for one more quick call. We have James on the line. Hi, James.
Hi, Marjorie. Hi, Dr. Saunders.
And what's your question, your comment?
My comment is on the national perspective. I'm someone with libertarian-leaning convictions, and I am always really, really ecstatic when a minority government gets elected because, essentially, the governments can't do too much harm. They can't railroad things through. They can't dominate discussion. So I'm really happy with the result last night.
Thank you so much, James. Okay, Kelly, we have a minute left here. Your reaction to what James talked about touching on the minority government.
Yeah, it reflects what I said back earlier that minority governments can perform well, in terms of having to work with other parties, really having to build consensus and not ram things through, as the caller mentioned. But at the same time, it can also paralyze governments from being able to take action that needs to be taken and to be able to make, decisive decisions when those decisions need to be made. So we'll see how things unfold, but I'm really hoping this is an opportunity for us to have good government and parties working together. We'll
Kelly,
see.
yeah, we'll see. There's a lot still to unfold here today for sure. Kelly, I really do appreciate you joining us. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. And thank you so much for joining us in all this election coverage.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Kelly Saunders is a political science professor from Brandon University.